I get it, you're staring at another must-have piece of equipment and wondering if it's just another pricey gimmick that will sit in a corner while you keep buying cheap alternatives that never quite cut it. Especially when it comes to something as critical as keeping vaccines at the right temperature, the stakes feel higher. You don't want to waste money on a freezer that looks good on paper but ends up being a headache in the clinic or on a field trip. And you also don't have time to guess whether this little unit will actually fit into your workflow. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's break down the ACCUCOLD portable vaccine freezer, see where it actually shines, and figure out if it's the right fit for you or if you should keep looking. First off, the biggest question most people have is this really built for vaccines, or is it just a regular mini fridge with a fancy label? ACCUCOLD makes a point of saying this unit is built specifically for vaccine use, which matters because vaccine storage has very tight temperature tolerances. The freezer runs on a compressor system rather than a thermoelectric one, so it can maintain sub-zero temperatures more reliably, even if you're moving it around a bit. That's a practical strength you'll notice if you need to transport doses between a hospital pharmacy and a mobile clinic. The wheels and handle make the whole thing feel like a small medical cart you can push through hallways or load into a van without breaking a sweat. Now, who should actually consider buying this? If you're a small to medium-sized clinic, a community health outreach program, or a veterinary practice that needs to keep a handful of vaccines on hand, the 0.88 cupped capacity hits a sweet spot. It's big enough for several vials and a few syringes, but still compact enough to fit on a standard lab bench or a compact storage room. For anyone who runs a pop-up immunization event, think school health days or rural health fairs, the portability factor is a real game changer. You can wheel the unit right up to a tent, plug it in, and have a stable cold chain without hauling a bulky chest freezer. On the flip side, if you're running a high-volume hospital pharmacy that needs to store dozens of different vaccines, this size will feel cramped fast. The same goes for research labs that need to keep multiple temperature-sensitive reagents in one place. In those scenarios, you'd be better off with a larger, purpose-built medical freezer that offers multiple compartments and higher capacity. So, the ACCUCOLD is a good fit for low to moderate volume needs, but not for a major distribution hub. Let's talk about daily usability. The control panel is straightforward, a single dial to set the desired temperature, a digital readout that shows the current internal temperature, and an alarm that blinks if the unit goes out of range. In real-world use, that simplicity reduces the chance of user error, a common pain point when staff rotate and not everyone is a refrigeration expert. I've seen clinics where the temperature alarm was ignored because the display was buried behind a confusing menu. That doesn't happen here. The alarm is audible and also flashes a red LED, making it hard to miss. For a busy nurse who's juggling appointments, that kind of clear feedback is worth the few extra dollars. One hidden trade-off is power consumption. Because it uses a compressor, it draws more electricity than a thermoelectric cooler would. In a setting where you have a reliable mains supply, that's not a big deal, but if you're planning to run it off a generator at a remote site, you'll need to factor in the extra fuel cost. Some users have mentioned that the unit runs a bit louder than a typical mini fridge. Again, not a deal breaker if it's in a dedicated storage area, but you probably don't want it humming right next to a patient waiting room. Another practical point is the internal layout. There's a single compartment with a removable shelf. That works well for stacking vials in a single layer, which is how most vaccine manufacturers recommend storing them to avoid crushing the vials and to ensure even airflow. However, you won't find separate temperature zones or built-in organizers, so you'll need to bring your own trays or dividers if you want to keep different vaccine types separated. It's a small extra step, but one that can add up in a busy clinic where organization saves minutes. Environmental friendliness is a claim that the brand highlights. The unit is built with a refrigerant that meets current eco-standards, and the casing uses recyclable plastics. In practice, that means you're not adding a particularly harmful piece of equipment to your carbon footprint, which is a plus for facilities that are trying to go green. It won't make your clinic carbon neutral on its own, but it avoids the worst offenders that still use older, high global warming refrigerants. Let's address durability. The chassis is made from a sturdy polymer that can take the occasional bump when you roll.